I wanted to share with you the Spark Scan. The purpose of the Spark Scan is to provide a very quick scan of the body and what's happening at the thoracic spine, the hips, and the feet, and are they connected. So the purpose of this scan is for base level trainers as well as athletic trainers and strength coaches who have to deal with large volumes of athletes at one time, and they want to quickly prioritize what areas need to be emphasized with that athlete. So it's a very simple scan that gives you an idea globally what's going on with the body. There's obviously ways to get much more in depth, but this is just a basic overview of what's happening in the body at that moment in time. So we're going to share how to use the scan, and we're going to show some of the features and functions with Spark Motion. And the beauty of what we're going to do is we're going to share collaborations from colleagues around the country who are all going to look at the same person in a scan, and they're going to share their thought process and strategy of what priorities and what exercises they might give that person as a corrective strategy. We all see motion differently. We all have different tools in our toolbox, and that's the beauty of Spark Motion. It becomes a tool for collaboration. So the first thing we're going to have is the athlete is going to step up onto a step. And what we're going to do is we're just going to monitor. We're going to take a look. They're going to press their arms as tall as they can, holding a dowel rod. We're going to cue them by lifting the ribs up off of the pelvis. So we want to get length in the spine and really have them push up as tall as they can. We want to cue them to extend the back knee. We want the back foot straight ahead, and we have pieces of tape on either side of that foot. And we want that back foot as straight as possible in stance. Some of the features and functions that we can use with Spark Motion when they're in this position, if we want to measure stride length, is we can obviously use the postural grid. I love to use the postural grid and line it up on bony landmarks. We can use the crosshair, and I'm going to line it up on the back foot on that lateral malleoli. And what we can do, if you see I have it lined up on the crosshairs, what that does is it gives us a nice fixed point, and we can see the rest of the body and measure distances between the front foot and the back foot. Now what we can do is we can use our measuring tool. And the great thing about the measuring tool, it's calibrated. So if we have a fixed known in the screen, such as this step here, I know this step is 16 inches. I can go ahead and enter in that calibration of 16 inches. Sometimes we use yardsticks in the field of view. You can measure whatever you have available, and that's fine. Now we have a new fixed known, so I'll use that medial malleoli of that front leg, and instead of going down to the lateral one of the back foot, we're simply going to use that crosshair coming straight up. And now we have a nice accurate reading of exactly how long that stride length is. We can also use the postural grid for just looking at overall body alignment and looking at where's the dowel rod in relationship to the head, the elbows, the shoulder, the hips, and work our way down. It just gives you a nice point of reference. When looking for behinds, you'll notice we have a piece of tape on either side of the foot. This is great reference for when we're looking at that foot. When they are performing the screen, we can see if we see any kind of spin in the foot, if we see any compensation or what I call energy leakage, where the body might compensate. And so it gives you a great frame of reference. There'll be a gap in the tape, and you'll see that change as they perform the movement. They're going to be pressing as tall as they can, hands shoulder width apart. And we're going to have them laterally flex. They'll do this 3 times. And the great thing about Spark Motion and using motion analysis is it really allows us to slow things down and look at where is that the motion occurring at. Are we seeing it occur at the hip? We're seeing some abduction at the hip. Are we seeing motion there at the thoracic spine? We have some curvature at the spine. Are we getting motion at the shoulders, excessive motion in the shoulder? Is the head flying along for the ride? Just different compensations you might see. We'll show different examples to give you an idea of different things that you might see. We'll have them perform 3 times on the left side. And then we're going to add rotation to it. This is really important. This rotational movement is having them press as tall as they can. And what we want to do is pay note to where the back foot is, making sure it's straight ahead. and we're going to add rotation to it. And we can see that the foot started spinning. You start seeing the toes show up. We want them to stay tall. And the question is that backhand coming forward? Are they compensating? Is there a restriction somewhere? We'll get a better vantage point from the side profile, but we're getting an idea that there might be some restriction there with that foot spin out. Is she able to maintain extension through the whole movement? And we'll compare left side and right side when she performs this. 3 repetitions. When we go from the side profile, we did use as a frame of reference when we were first learning this, I used simple post-it notes, placed it on the ASIS, the front part of the pelvis, and also on the tibial tuberosity on each leg. This just gives you a nice visual reference to watch as they rotate, as they're coming through motion. You'll see how much of the pelvis is the pelvis rotating. You'll see how much reaction is happening at the knee and what's happening down at the foot. So the question is, as she rotates the pelvis, is there a lag? Does the knee fly along for the ride, or is there a reaction down to the foot? Great thing about slowing this down, as we learn and see things quicker with our eyes, we won't need to slow it down as much. But as you're learning this is extremely helpful. So what we're seeing is she has a fair amount of range in that hip socket, that pelvis moving on that fixed femur. We're seeing both bony landmarks rotate towards us pretty proficiently. We can watch it in real time, watch the speed of the movement. Something else we can do is we can also watch that front leg. Does it fly along for the ride as a compensation, showing there might be a restriction in that inner thigh? She's doing it pretty fluidly, but we're seeing that she has a lot of range of motion in that hip, and my question is, can she control it? And we'll obviously compare left side and right side. Seeing that she has a lot of rotation. Pelvis is coming around. And then what we're noticing is when she loses motion at the hip, when the hip stops, she keeps going with that with the spine. So she has a lot of motion up top as well. So what we're seeing is that thoracic spine there's certainly some rotation there in the lumbar spine. She's able to get some more rotation, but if she's leading with her pelvis, we don't want her to go too far, but we're just trying to monitor what's happening between the thoracic spine, the hips, the knee, and then down to the foot. Here's a different athlete with a different body type, and just in their alignment and their body position alone, we can see that he lacks terminal knee extension, so he's not actually able to stay extended in this position. He lacks hip extension. See that curvature in that low back and that lumbar spine just by having his arms up over his head. So he's picking up motion in the low back. He lacks it there in the anterior hip, and he can't extend that knee. So we're looking at some definite compensations and definitely probably some restriction in motion there. So as he performs his rotation, we want to see, can he maintain extension through the elbows? We see that we have a little bit of bend in the elbows, bend in the knee. Let's see how much pelvic rotation we get as he comes through. That's it right there. So we're clearly seeing that he lacks rotation there in that hip and probably down the lower leg. So we're seeing that there's definitely some restriction in rotation there. And I placed another athlete with a different body type. And what we want to get an idea is there's different types of compensation. So he's able to get his arms pretty well over top of his head. We take a look at knee extension. It looks pretty good, might be a little bit better. I'm not seeing a huge curvature there in the spine. Let's look at what he does when he adds rotation. So what we can see is he is rotating. He's getting pretty good rotation. I'm seeing a little bit of reaction at the foot. I'm seeing both bony landmarks, but watch what happens with this front leg. So we move him back. Watch how he compensates. As he rotates, that knee comes along for the ride, showing that we clearly have excessive use there of that adductor. And the question is why? What we want to do is kind of monitor, and when we design a program, we're going to take a look at that in designing a program for them. So you're just going to look at different types of compensations, and is there a difference between the left side and the right side? Is it consistent on both sides? Are we seeing that knee fly along for the ride? Yes, definitely. As he rotates, he wants to bring that front leg along for the ride. These are case studies we'll go through and explain, but I want you guys to give the Spark Motion Scan a try. Use your tools in your toolbox. We'll share some of our tools, and I'd love to see how you use it as well.